So guys, after numerous delays, talks of day 1 and day 7 patches for the PSVR2 and Quest headsets respectively, and scant new information surrounding a Steam VR release, Skydance's Behemoth is finally here. And while it's much too early to give a full-fledged final verdict with this one, I do have a few initial thoughts. Welcome to the simulation inside the simulation. I am Tooodamngolden, your VR Voyager, and let's get right to business with my Skydance's Behemoth first impressions. Alright, so before we get things kicked off, just a quick preface. Firstly, I'm about 7 hours in as of this recording on the PC VR version, and about 4.5 hours in on the MetaQuest 3 version, so those are the two variants of this title that I have personally experienced, and this also will not be a final review today, as I have decided to wait to see what improvements the Day 7 patch brings to this one. But with that out of the way, guys, let's just jump right into it. Skydance's Behemoth is the highly anticipated follow-up to its massively successful title, The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners, and gamers are treated to a narrative journey where players assume the role of Ren, a villager who has been marked with an evil curse that will see you turned into a mindless belligerent if the massive godlike creatures known as behemoths are not slain. But it is this curse that actually serves as the base of your character's immense power, and being marked by the curse allows for Ren to hit harder, slice more precisely, and even move much more faster than the average warrior, and it is under these pretenses that your journey can really begin. And turning to the visuals in Behemoth, this is where I was really able to spot the differences in the versions, as while decent looking enough and definitely being an accomplishment specifically for the Quest 3 headset, with environments still holding scale and behemoths lumbering over the battlefield in an experience unlike any other VR title. But the Quest version does suffer from some pesky aliasing issues as well as some frame rate drop issues, especially when entering one of this one's cutscenes. On the contrary, my time with the PC VR version, courtesy of Steam VR, hasn't really been hampered by these same drops in frames, and visually, Skydance's Behemoth is really sharp and clear, with great detail being put into the world's environments and overall scenery, as players will love the various strongholds, ice caverns, and general frigid landscapes that are offered, as well as some decently composed NPCs designed to bring some life into this bleak and gloomy world. But transitioning over to the gameplay side of things, Skydance's Behemoth is very largely centered around the tried and true concept of players loving a hack and slash extravaganza, and this is very much that, as gameplay revolves around Ren using various weapons such as throwing daggers, great swords, bows, and axes to take on foes. And this is a very heavily physics-based experience, which any of you out there who have played Saints and Sinners will be familiar with each individual weapon having a unique feel, handle, and weight to it, and really placing the onus on the gamer to make the correct combat decision as this one unfolds. The melee combat in Skydance's Behemoth is pretty damn good here, with enough variation in both weapon choice and methodology to actually dispatch enemies to allow for unique playstyles to flourish, especially when combined with the aid of a very handy grappling hook that, while I do wish there was a bit more autonomy on where you can actually aim it at, it does provide a ton of strategic value, as gamers will use this hook to ascend great heights, destroy environmental obstacles, pull over trees onto enemies, and move various instruments to be used at Ren's leisure. But nonetheless, a ton of dodging, blocking, and parrying will be present throughout your time with Behemoth, and this works really well most of the time. And I say most of the time because parrying does feel a bit inconsistent to me, as oftentimes when I found myself actually landing a successful parry, it was truthfully completely accidental, as finding those consistent points of contact for both blocking and parrying can be frustrating due to this inconsistency, at least in my personal opinion. But for the most part, combat is pretty fluid, with players grabbing weapons from one of the 4 utility slots on their person, and while there really isn't much of a true skill tree for either weapons or Ren himself, I will say that the use of your super strength, for lack of a better term, combined with the well-timed dashes and well-placed strikes, does present you with a sense of unwieldy power that truly is a ton of fun once you get the hang of things. But guys, on to the main selling point of this experience, the Behemoth behemoths themselves, and as of this recording I've only encountered 2 of the game's 4 massive creatures, but let me tell you, the sheer scale of these monstrosities is absolutely out of this world, as you will find yourself utilizing pretty much each and every skill that you have learned previously to find the best ways to take down these beasts, with gamers ascending the behemoths through winding paths, up and down their legs, right, and pretty much scaling their bodies in an effort to strike at weak points scattered throughout the body of each and every single boss. And these fights more than live up to the hype, with each encounter feeling like a true life or death scenario and an epic battle on an otherworldly scale that most certainly does live up to the billing, and without a doubt is one of the premier VR moments to be had. But for all the good I've mentioned thus far in today's video, I do feel like there are a few criticisms that are rightfully deserved, with the first and most glaring one to me being the absolutely horrific way in which this game was promoted, as there was no mention of a Steam VR release at launch, leading to a ton of community confusion, purchases, refunds, and repurchases in the VR world, and I'm honestly not sure what the rationale behind that one was. That's really all I have on that. But more directly related to the gameplay itself, I will say that the narrative throughout this one does feel a bit predictable, and I am a bit disappointed with the overarching plot, as I feel that Skydance did an amazing job with Saints and Sinners of building a pretty decent narrative around the setting, and while not a terrible storyline or narrative by any stretch of the imagination, I do feel like I've seen this story somewhere before. However, as I've said, I'm only about 6.5, 7 hours into the game, and I really am hoping that this one does wrap up nicely. Most importantly to me, I would also like to see a bit more consistency with both the parrying system as well as the climbing mechanic, which felt very hit or miss to me with regards to jumping up the higher ledges. But ultimately, these things don't drive down the overall fun factor of this title too much, and again, with quick patches on the way, I am curious to see how this one progresses, because if we remember, guys, Batman Arkham Shadow is a significantly better game post-patch. However, it is a bit disappointing that instead of delaying this game by the week or 2 it may have needed, they are instead choosing the popular method of fuck it, we'll fix it later. So if I have to give this game a score right now at this very moment, I'd give it a very solid 7.5 out of 10, with the combat, visuals, and the grand scale of everything really being well represented all the way throughout. Alright folks, that's just about it for my Skydance's Behemoth first impressions. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so, as next week post-patch I will be dropping my comprehensive Behemoth review. As always, I am Tooodamngolden, your VR Voyager, and thanks for joining me in the simulation inside the simulation.